leading to the hallway, and the other two to a large patio. Well before the lecture began, people eagerly filled the wooden benches, which even had backrests. The hall was packed. The audience included craftsmen, intellectuals, aristocrats, and politicians. Even slaves were welcome if their masters permitted them. Caius Aelius Octavianus sat in the front with a proud smile, in his finest toga, accompanied by his two teenage daughters, whom he intentionally exposed to Stoic philosophy from a young age. Then there was the noisy quaestor, Tiberius Sellus, who had come all the way from Rome and had previously interrupted Epictetus during lectures. Arrian and Titus managed to get a second row seat. Then he finally entered through the door, as if a demigod was entering, but one on crutches. Nobody knew exactly why Epictetus limped, and nobody dared to ask him. The majority claimed his former master had broken his leg in anger. Others believed he suffered from rheumatism. Epictetus slowly hobbled to the lectern. He carefully surveyed the audience. A large gathering. Is that a good sign? It depends. Are you here because you want to become rich or famous? Or maybe to vent about your neighbor, or your master or slave, or perhaps even about Zeus himself? Or are you here to learn how to be free? And no, by being free, I don't mean that you can do whatever you want. By being free, I mean that you're not dependent on things that are beyond your control. If you want to be free, you're welcome. If not, you're better off staying away. Titus stood up. His heart pounded in his throat. His hands trembled. He swallowed several times before he spoke. I am new here. I come to seek your advice. From inside his chiton, he pulled out a piece of papyrus with notes that fluttered between his fingers and landed on the floor. He left the notes on the ground. I've been through a lot lately. I don't know how to move forward. I don't come to complain, but I want to share my story so you can help me. With a lump in his throat, he recounted how he lost his wealth, his wife left him, took his children, and went on vacation to Olympia with Alcander Cassius, and also how his reputation was ruined by false rumors. The philosopher interrupted him. Why do you complain about things that are unimportant? You're upset over the loss of what was not yours in the first place. What did you expect? That you would be inseparable into the underworld? Do you really think, like the fools among us, that everything you cherish will never disappear? Don't be so silly. If your former wife was to be with you for eternity, she would still be by your side. Your wife, your children, your house, your reputation, your precious metals, and even, yes, even your body are not your possessions. Zeus has lent them to you. He takes them back whenever he wants. This is the feast of the gods. They lead the universe well and justly. So don't call it a tragedy or a catastrophe, but accept it with contentment. But what do I have left if all these things are taken from me? Titus wiped his tears on his chiton. The gods have made us humans to be happy and balanced. Zeus has given us the means to do so. He has given us things that are ours and things that are not ours. That your wife leaves you is not up to you, but how you deal with this event is indeed up to you. That you feel so miserable about this situation is not someone else's fault. It's due to your own deficiency. Wait, this is not right, Titus said with a trembling voice. Now you're blaming the victim. Isn't my wife to blame at all? And what about that scoundrel? They caused all this, didn't they? It certainly wasn't me who committed adultery. It wasn't me who spread all sorts of lies. Come on, philosopher, this makes no sense. I miss any form of justice. Titus felt his heart raging, like a group of Spartan soldiers on the battlefield, outnumbered by the enemy. Why do you call yourself a victim? You are suffering for your unreasonableness. Why should she suffer? Because you consider what belongs to another as your own. Things like wealth, fame, power, relationships, and even fair treatment are ultimately up to the gods. They are beyond your control. The only thing within your control is how you deal with these circumstances. If you remain undisturbed by these things, then you will also experience no sorrow. But if you keep lamenting about things that don't concern you, then you are nothing more than a slave. Cheers came from the back of the hall, followed by the rest of the attendees. Titus sat down and stared blankly ahead. Epictetus turned to his audience and explained that if you let your happiness depend on things that are not yours, you're in an unreliable position. Arrian added, unasked, that Lady Fortuna just needs to take these things away from you, and she's gotten a rise out of you. Or she brings you joy by giving what you desire, and so you are dependent on her whims, as she plays you like a puppet. If you focus on what's not within your control, suffering is inevitable, sooner or later, said Arian. Although the lecture was over, aspiring philosophers filled the hall to the brim. Tiberius Sellus, who, to everyone's surprise, had remained silent during the entire lecture, finally contributed his aphorisms and fallacies. Caius Aelius Octavianus proudly walked through the crowd, with Epictetus by his side, trying to quickly resolve some personal issues. Soon, Arian joined in the conversation, to the irritation of the host. Titus walked into the patio, not a cloud in the sky. The sound of an owl echoed through the courtyard, sending shivers down his spine. A scorpion hurried across the courtyard. Titus took a few steps back and waited until the creature disappeared under a crack in the stone wall. Among the conifers, he saw a man standing with his back to him by the fountain in the middle of the patio, surrounded by a sea of withered plants. Just like the man he had encountered the previous day in the woods, he wore a dark red toga and hood, shielding him from the fierce sun. The man turned around. Titus' heart skipped a beat. That Epictetus is quite a phenomenal speaker, isn't he? Titus examined the man from head to toe. Now he was sure. It was the same guy as in the woods. He still seemed familiar, but he couldn't remember where he knew him from or who he was, for that matter. His face was too smooth for a gladiator, but too rough for a politician. His skin seemed to see little sunlight. His eyes had the depth of a well, but also the sparkle of the lagoon on a sunny afternoon. Titus made brief eye contact and glanced at the tops of the conifers, towering over the walls surrounding the patio. Arian was right, said Titus. Epictetus' words are useful. I feel better now. Fantastic. I think I heard him say that a true philosopher does not wish for life to go as he wants, but as it goes. Did I hear that correctly? Titus stared at the fountain. A brief burning sensation appeared in his stomach. He thought about how deeply he wished life had turned out differently. That he had never lost his fortune, that his father was still alive, that his wife had never deceived him, that he had finally discovered the secret to turning stone into gold and thus being carried on the hands of the Roman people along the Tiber. He felt small, insignificant, powerless. How could I wish for all this? Sighing deeply, he shook his head. Yes, that's correct. Ah, the man frowned, dipped his hands into the fountain, and took a sip of water. So, you should accept in contentment that your wife commits adultery and falsely accuses you of being a pimp, right? Zeus has taken back your wife and children and assigned them to another. That seems to be the gist of it, yes? As if struck by a stray arrow, Titus cast a blank stare ahead. The tops of the conifers danced like courtesans in the brothels near the forum. The sound of crickets drowned out the nonsensical background chatter. Titus imagined himself watching impassively as his former wife strolled hand in hand with Alcander Cassius through the sacred precincts of the gods in Olympia, or as he himself walked undisturbed through the marketplace in Nicopolis while the people laughed and scorned him. Again, a burning sensation filled his stomach, spreading to his chest and throat. His legs felt heavy, as if Sisyphus had placed his boulder on his shoulders. Are you suggesting Epictetus is wrong? Oh, not at all. I wouldn't dare. Perhaps I'm completely mistaken. But I do wonder if we truly must accept everything that Epictetus claims is not up to us with contentment, especially those things that deeply revolt us inside. Titus sighed deeply, his fingers and toes curling as the burning sensation seemed to climb into his hands and feet. Hoping for relief from these unpleasant sensations, he pushed his body up and down with his calves. But what else can we do? Whether the gods are good or bad, or not gods at all, many things are not within our control. Epictetus is entirely right about this. My wealth, my wife, even my children are not mine. The gods can apparently take them away from me. As long as I'm attached to these things, I'm vulnerable. So what I really need to do is let go of all this. Is that so? According to the Stoics, we should focus on things within our control and not desire things beyond our control, like fame, wealth, or even our loved ones. If we do, Lady Fortuna plays us like puppets. I get that. But aren't the many things beyond our control precisely the fine things in life? What would life be worth without walks with our loved ones through the olive groves, the sight of the temple of Zeus, the enjoyment of a Falernian wine? Following Stoics might create inner peace, but it also stops you from truly living. Titus remained silent. After a glance at the dancing conifers, the man walked back inside, looked around, and left the building. Titus stayed in the patio for a while longer, staring at the fountain, until Arian called him back inside. I hope you enjoyed this reading from my novel. If you're interested in reading the full story, please follow the link in the description. I would be very happy if you gave it a try. You can get the ebook for 99 cents.
Are you crying? Are you crying? Are you crying? There's no crying. There's no crying in foosball.
You fucking cried after 3 days in the fucking holding tank. Looked like a fucking pile of wet rags at court. You should see how I showed up to court after 3 days in the box with the light on.
Please, is there anything I can do, sir? Please.
Does he look like a bitch? What?
Don't do this to my wife, man. You don't know what you're doing to my family, man.
Does he look like a bitch?
Sir, please don't make me sleep in jail tonight, sir, please. I'm begging you. We're not criminals. They're gonna make me sleep in jail.
Continue. You were saying something about best intentions?
Josh has never been arrested for recording.
Okay, so that's him getting arrested, and then his friend here makes a phone call that I want to touch on.
The government is a figment of your imagination. It's an artificial, intelligent overlay. It is only a concept. It's a play. It's a performance. It's an act. They love when I have to fucking go off. I can look at something from a few different sides, and I can see where it all connects, despite what they're telling.
God damn it, Paul.
Right? They just look at what they're told. I look at what makes sense. You know, they'll say I'm doing word salad. They'll say that I'm just going off on my own tangent, but that is because my mind works in a different way than the majority of the slaves. You guys are all in your feelers and never see the logic behind life, how it all moves together and fits together and how it works. So when you learn to check your feelers and move them out of the way and just observe with clarity and presence and awareness, you will make the right determinations and the right decisions. It's all the same shit over and over again. And no matter how much I speak on self-empowerment, self-mastery, self-reflection, you all have a belief and a feeling that's going to trump that. Ancient wisdom that works for everybody who embodies the path. You're not your own God. I know you want to be, but you're not. As soon as you get in line with what that thing wants from you or what is, you'll stop having these fucking problems. So I view all the rest of this shit as a distraction. Governance is an act and a play, and it requires your belief and participation. The culture, the society, the legal system, the legal society, policy, statute, and code is the original artificial intelligence and state of consciousness that has been overlaid on the NI. And that's why you have domesticated slaves and you have uncivilized men like myself. You don't want to accept that there's an objective morality that exists in this realm that every man and woman can comprehend using objective logic. It's not about wanting the fame and the riches. It's about being good at what you do, being recognized for it, and then when you get to the dance, telling all the people to suck your dick in public and leave because you never wanted to bond with them anyway. That's the whole point of being true to yourself, is so that wherever you get to that you're meant to go, you don't have to change that. Quite the opposite. That's what got you there. I got a direct link to that spirit and to the people.
Everyone's got to appreciate.
You can't get in between that.
Everyone's got to fucking bow down.
That's where you go beyond the ceiling that they don't want you to go beyond. That's the stage of inspiration and empowerment. They can't control you no more. They can't influence you no more. They can't put fear on you and things around you to stop you from being who and what you're meant to be. That's the game for me. That's the game for all of us, I thought. Actualized and realized. Written on our heart, first and foremost, through common sense, that if not overlaid with some dogma and indoctrination, we could all communicate harmoniously. Right? So I'm never going to accept, unless my perspective completely changes, that there isn't an objective morality here that can be hit as a standard and understood by any being with the capacity of objective logic, understanding right from wrong. Okay? So you just want to say statute, policy, and code is law, and the law is the law, even though they're making it up and revising it constantly. And it's not always in line with objective right from wrong. So you're completely misunderstood. You guys talk from feelers. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Your etymology is never sound because you don't care to look into the words and terms. This should not be that difficult. But for beings who lost the ability to imagine, I'm sure that it's quite the Herculean task. You should be able to zoom out and see all the connections and how it relates. You can't do that. You have no business speaking to someone else who can. There is no selfless component to you folks' consciousness. And it's evident because you constantly project onto others how selfish you think they are because you don't think that that state of consciousness is attainable. Embarrassing.
Greetings, folks. We're back at it. Tell him again, Don Juan. Take the chains off King Kong. Let him cook. What's up with the algo, man? What's up, guys? What's up? You don't want me in the room? You don't like it when I'm popping? You don't like it when I'm hot? Man, I got so many. Who would have ever known? I got so many jealous haters. You know, who am I? I'm nobody. I'm just in my area doing what I do. They can't have it, though. Right? It just proves, you know, that I have some value. I have some power. I have some inspiration because they can't have it. I'm a threat. If TCC could give me my not mine, I guess his, that is about me. Let's get back to me. If he could just leave that democracy thing, Paulie's a threat to democracy. So that's what's going on here. But hey, that's okay. We move forward. You know what it is. I mean, let's be real. Did you expect him to let me be in the algorithm for more than like 3 to 5 days? You know, maybe a week max. Do you really expect that to continue on? I mean, who knows? Anything's possible. We'll have faith. Whatever's meant to be is meant to be. But yeah, as soon as they get word of that, they get a hold of that, they're going to tamper a little bit, right? So everyone got to experience that. Now you know that I'm not crazy. Now you know that I never bought subs. Now you know what I would be at if they weren't fucking with me. I'm pretty much like a quarter of Joe Rogan is the bottom line, right? I'm pretty much like Andy. I'm a chubby Andy Tate is what we found out, right? That I'd be doing 10, 15, 20, 50, 150,000 views and be picking up about 100 to 200 subscribers a day. Who'd have thunk it? We'll move forward, do what we do. We got a core group here regardless. They're going to stick it out till the end, ride it till the wheels fall off. So I'm cool with that, if nothing else, right? I'm thankful and grateful and blessed. Let me thank Leslie, Auntie Leslie, for her contributions and support. Amazing woman, amazing housewife, amazing mother, amazing everything, as Donald Trump would say. Trump 2024. There you go. I know. We get it, dude. You're a slave, all right? We're here for you. We love you. We're sorry that you're going to continually yell shit out and act like a retard. You know, we're sorry you're going to continue to support your own slavery, but we're going to move on here. Let's get right to the docket. We're cop heavy, as is somewhat usual. Cops try to arrest him for walking, boss level ID refusal. Let's get into it.
Tell me I can't walk down a public street. A public street. Shit crazy. I wish you would have touched me, man. I would have lit your ass up. I wish you would have touched me, man. Come do it now. I don't care about that. I'm a free American, man. Get the fuck out of my face, bro. If you would have touched me, I would have laid you down, bro. But I would have laid you down. You would have had a good sleep.
I didn't say I was going to touch you, man.
Well, are you an American? Are you an American, motherfucker? We in a free society, right? That's a free street. I'm just walking down the street. I wish you would have touched me. I would have laid you out, and I would have enjoyed it. Yeah, you too. I'm free. You free? Be free, man. Fuck out of here, man. Crazy. You're crazy. I just walked through on their ass. They're like, we'll call. I said, touch me then. I would have laid, and the police are on their way. Call them. Fuck you, man. You call them. I don't run from the police, and I'll lay their ass out too. Yeah. You gonna find out who I am if they get here. They gonna look me up, leave him alone.
That's right.
I bet you. I'll wait. Go in there and get our food. 2 orders of chicken friotes or frioles. Go get them right now. I'm gonna wait right here. I bet you they tell you the same shit when they look at my face. I don't play. I'm a free American. Thank you. It's a street. I'm walking down.
All right, folks, I'm not exactly too sure what transpired before this video began or why the security guards singled this man out from everyone in this little festival in the first place. From what it looks like here in this video, he was just passing by to grab some food at a nearby restaurant in which he wasn't even attending this little festival, but yet they want him trespassed. So what does that tell you? What I think this is just an attempt from the security guard's part to bully this dude and create a problem out of nothing. The cops show up and attempt to get this man's identification, but he isn't so willing to give up his rights just like that. I gotta give this fella props for being brave enough to take the ride. From my perspective, that just shows he's confident enough he didn't do anything wrong. If this man had done something wrong, I don't think he'd be acting the way he did here in this video, but I want you folks to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Let's go ahead and keep watching.
Wow. Somebody touch me illegally out. Police, FBI, it said I'll beat the fucking touch me. You gonna stop this? I don't care, man. It's a free street. I was just walking down. You good, bro? Bro, you good. You don't need to understand. You ain't what I'm arguing with. So you don't need to. Well, I'm gonna have peace either way. I'm filming. So if I gotta lay hands, I'm legit.
Right, but you don't want to do that.
I do want to, for freedom. Soldiers go to war for freedom, right? They don't say I'm a soldier too, though. And bro, get out of my face, bro. You tried to do what? Enjoy your night, brother. Bro, just enjoy your night. The police are here. Just go enjoy your night, bro. Get the fuck out of my face, bro. Hey, how you doing, officer? Just go enjoy your night. Get the fuck out of my face.
All right, you disrespecting me.
Just get the fuck out of my face, bro. I'm here. I'm the guy that walked through.
Okay, so let me talk to him real quick. Okay, I'll talk to you.
I'm the guy that walked through.
Okay, you walked.
I walked on a public street to get to here.
It's not a public street right now.
So that's not a street.
This is closed off as a festival district.
It's a public street.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Public access.
It's not public access. When this event is going on, it's not public access. They have requirements to get checked before you come in and out of this area.
To just walk through an area in America.
During the time they're running this event, yes, that's what's happening.
To walk through an area in America. It's public normally.
Secured. They're rounding people. They're checking people.
I ain't got no damn weapons. They saw that. I'm not getting my ID. If you want to arrest me and take me down, that's fine, man. I'm not breaking any laws. Well, I'm just saying. I'm an American. I stand on my freedoms. Hopefully, like you two do, and I hope that you the oath you took to the Constitution.
Yeah. So unfortunately, we need to document everybody that we have.
That's fine. That's a policy. That's not law. I know that.
So you're refusing to provide that information?
I am.
Okay. Come on. Hang on. Nope. You're not free to go. Hang on.
No, I said let's go.
Okay. Well, hopefully we're going to avoid that. Let me try
no, let's go. Let's go. Let's go. You want to take advantage of my freedoms and abuse my freedoms? Let's go. No, let's go. I just walked down the street in fucking America and I'm being threatened with arrest. Let's go.
Nobody has threatened you with arrest.
All right, man. Sounds like all that's going to happen is that you're not welcome back here tonight, okay?
What do you mean? I came to get food. I walked down the street.
Okay, you're not welcome in the festival district. Do you understand that?
I walked down the street to fucking get food.
So you didn't want to commit trespass.
I walked down a street to get food.
Okay, they don't want you in here. You're free to go.
Right.
Do they own this shit?
We're not trying to go to the festival.
Fuck out of here, bro. That's why I said take me to jail. Well, get the fuck out my face then.
Like I said,
You guys are free to go. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I'm free. Thank you for saying I'm free. No, thank you. I'm free.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Damn. To be free, that's what it takes. Shit.
All right, everybody. I want you.
So more and more folks are learning the law, the difference between policy and code and statute and law. Statute, policy, and code only given the force of law to the consent of the governed. And we're seeing how that's turning out, right? Sometimes not so favorably. Sometimes they recognize that they're in the wrong. They recognize common sense, and they also remember the difference between policy, code, and law themselves. And they uphold the spirit of the code rather than the letter of the code. The spirit of the code is the law, or the lore, if you will. All right, let's move along here. We got another auditor person, I guess you could say. Grandma, she or he rather, they is a fan favorite. So let's go to that. See how that turns out. I enjoyed that one the other day.
One badge. It's very good. I see a finger in there. You can't fool Grandma. Grandma's old. Oh, Grandma just loves being out here. Grandma's been locked away for too long. Grandma doesn't like it. Grandma loves freedom. Now, what is he doing? Oh, isn't he just a sweet dog? Grandma loves seeing him. Grandma loves it. He looks hungry and he looks horny. The best combination. Oh. Grandma's been locked away for too long. Grandma doesn't like it. Hey, leave Peggy alone, sir. Oh, we're just gathering in some intelligence.
Some intelligence?
Yes, sir. Just casing the joint, looking around.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
For what purpose?
It's an investigation.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We know what Fernando did in here, so.
Who's Fernando?
It's one of the workers. So we're catching him doing the dirty.
Who are you guys?
Grandma, and that's Grandma Peggy.
Your grandma?
Grandma Peggy.
Butt Crack News Network, the realest news network.
We do got the supplies.
What is it that you guys are filming here? Like, what's...
Oh, some top secret intelligence.
Okay, I understand you can keep saying that, but what's your intention here?
Oh, we're going to distribute this out to some certain folks. They told us to come here.
Who's that?
Well, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's from Baghdad.
Guy from Baghdad?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just gathering some intelligence. We do need to find Fernando.
Yeah, at least get away from the road a little bit.
Oh, yes, if you want, yes. We'll get off that road.
Let's just talk over here a little bit.
Even the sidewalk.
Oh, yeah, we'll take the sidewalk, sure.
We're looking for somebody named Fernando that works here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We did catch him doing some bad things,
What sort
some
of
very illegal. Well, it has to do with human trafficking.
human trafficking?
Yes, sir.
And you are Grandma.
Yes, sir. That's Peggy.
Okay. All right.
We do know Fernando is working here today.
Do you have a last name?
Just Grandma, darling.
Not
Just
your
Grandma.
last name.
Oh, Fernando. I think it's Anguilera. So we are looking for him.
All right.
And we are looking for, if you do see a Chinese female around 30 to 35 years of age.
Okay.
Goes by Ming, M-I-N-G.
M-I-N-G.
Yes, sir. So we're trying to catch Fernando because we know a little bit of something.
Okay.
So we will catch him.
Who are you guys actually with?
BCNN,
BCNN.
News Network.
Okay.
So we are the top tier investigative journalists out here, sir.
Okay.
But we are going to find this Fernando and might have to do a bit of grandma justice.
Okay.
So we will absolutely will find him.
Okay.
Guaranteed.
So can I ask you guys, I don't necessarily understand what you guys are doing. You can't do it here.
But we did get some intel that Fernando was doing a little bit of something to Miss Ming here. So we are going to catch him in the act.
Okay.
But we do need
What
to.
is it that he's doing to Miss Ming here?
Well, we have some human trafficking charges that we're looking towards. And
Okay.
we do need to catch him in the act. That's why we got the cameras.
And you think that you're going to prove that here?
Oh, absolutely, sir. We are the top tier investigative journalists, not only in Iowa, all over the world, sir. So it's just one of those things that you got to get out there and get that intelligence.
Okay. And do you guys have real names that I can refer to you by instead of Grandma?
I love just Grandma, darling.
Okay.
I mean,
Peggy.
Okay.
that's Peggy.
Okay.
A little bit slower over there, but
Okay.
this Grandma's the one you need to talk to.
This one?
This is the lead
Okay,
investigator.
What is your real name?
Oh, Grandma.
Okay.
Or grandmother, you know,
So you guys
or
think
that hot
there's-
Gmail.
You guys think there's a person that works here that's involved in human trafficking and is causing a problem with a Ming?
Oh, absolutely,
Does Ming
sir.
work here?
No, she doesn't, sir.
Okay, well then how would
She's
anything
been
happen here?
human trafficking. You normally don't get the same employee because she's an illegal over here illegally.
But she's not here.
Well, that's what they all say until we do this investigation.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is just what we do here at BCNN, sir. Real news only.
I am going to ask you guys gotta leave.
Oh, shit. You just invited us on here, though.
No, I warned you off the road, but you can't.
Oh.
out
But
here.
Grandma's going to have to, sir.
Okay.
She needs to get
Well,
her
then,
delivery
so
in,
if
too. We
there's-
got a baggie with a little Coke in it, and got to
there's-
find him.
If there's a problem, I'm going to call local law enforcement.
Don't, sir. I do have warranties.
That's fine. I'm going to
Don't do it, sir, please.
I'm going to call
Grandma will
them
get
and they'll
locked
come
up
talk
again.
to you.
Don't, please, sir.
No, they'll come help.
Sir, please. No, they'll lock me up again, sir.
Yeah.
I got the warranties. Ah, shit. They're calling the police.
They'll just be here to help.
No, they won't, sir.
Why won't they?
They locked me up last time and did bad things. They hurt me and abused me.
Well, that's unfortunate. Was it
Yes,
these
sir.
police?
No, sir. Waterloo.
These folks are pretty good folks.
I don't know, sir. You called them. Please don't. I'm just an old grandma.
They're going to be wonderful to work with.
Oh,
and they'll
please,
be able to
sir.
help.
Please. Let's get out of here. Please don't call, sir. Please.
Please.
Don't call. Don't call, sir. Grandma's cookies getting moist, brother. Oh, he's following me. Help. He's following Grandma. Sexual predator. Sexual. Yeah, what is he doing? What are they doing? Oh, Grandma doesn't like this. Grandma can't get locked up again. Oh, no way, Jose. Grandma's hips haven't moved like that since '93. Yeah, all right. Can't catch Grandma if you're obese. Sir, you kicked us off. What, sir? Do you want us back on the sidewalk?
Well, yeah, listen to the road. It's shift change here, and people drive.
They drive speedy.
They're speedy, yeah.
Yes, sir. Would you like us off on the sidewalk?
I'm fine if you're like right in here.
Oh, certainly, sir. Oh, what the hell? I can't run them now. City of Pella. Oh, how are we doing today, sir? Grandma's moist and happy.
Hey, sir. What's happening?
Don't snitch, sir, please. We talked about this. Don't do it, sir, please.
Said that they have somebody here that's involved in human trafficking, and so I said, well, why don't you talk to the police about that?
We're the best top-tier investigative journalists out there, though, sir. We want the clout. We need it.
And then I just wanted them off.
Was there something I can help you guys with?
No, sir. We're just looking for Fernando.
Okay. Vermeer Security can help you guys.
We already tried, sir, but they said get out of here. But they want us to use the sidewalk, so that was nice.
Okay. So nothing we can help you with. Like I can't help
Oh, no, sir. Well, unless if you go in there and look, I don't know how many employees he has, but we do have reason to believe that he's hiding Fernando.
And I'm hiding Fernando?
Yes, sir. I mean, that's what we do here at BCNN.
Last name?
Just grandma, sir. I do have a press pass credentials.
No, I mean Fernando's.
Oh, we believe it's Angulera or something similar to Angulera. And we do believe that he is hiding her.
Hiding who?
Ming and Fernando.
You know, like which area they were? Or Fernando?
We're just told to go to building 1 and 2.
Okay. So Fernando in building 1 or 2. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out. My dispatcher said something about human trafficking.
Oh, this investigation's been going on about 1.5 years, sir. There was a disappearance to Miss Ming.
A disappearance?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We do have a lot of intel that would lead us to believe that she is actually here, being hidden by Fernando, and we do believe this gentleman is hiding him.
This gentleman?
That's what we have intel. It seemed like he is hiding from his answers. This is a serious matter, sir.
Well, I don't have Fernando by that name. Do you have a picture of Fernando?
Well, it's on my telephone. But I got to record right now.
Well, can you show him the photo, but your friend can keep recording?
Well, I don't trust him. That's Peggy. She's mentally challenged.
Okay. All right. Well, with what you're giving me, I would contact Vermeer Security and they would look it up. So really, there's nothing else I can do for you without more information.
That sounds good with me, sir, if you want to help me out. Or if you could have the Fernandos come outside and line up.
Can't do that either. The thing is, no matter what, you can't do anything on our campus.
We'll just wait outside then.
Are they trying to find somebody?
Fernando.
Someone named Fernando. Okay. Like, is he a friend of yours or yours?
No, he's actually a suspect on our radar.
Oh, okay.
So we are trying to find him. Well, BCNN, sir. Great.
All right, I got some other things I got to take care of here, so I'm going to go to a replay of an interaction. Victor, I want to bring you up at some point. I may have to wait till tomorrow or later when I get back. It's getting dark, and like I said, I got some other stuff going on here. I just did not want to miss. I wanted to make sure that I gave you guys a broadcast. So I'm going to go to the Melt podcast interaction, and I'll be back at some point. I'll also be listening in the background.
Hey, have you given any thought to contributing to the Melt? It's easy to do. Just click the Patreon link in the episode notes, and for as little as $3 a month, you can get access to bonus episodes, early access to regular episodes, and you can also participate in monthly Zoom meetups. It helps to keep the magic happening here at the Melt. So I encourage you to karmically entangle yourself with the Melt today by subscribing monthly for less than the price of a container of goatee wax, or a prosthetic pinky, or a half stick of DMT butter, or an inflatable casket, or the shrunken head of an Atlantean supermodel, or a woolly mammoth smirkin, or a crystalline replica of Baba Yaga's hut, or a capsule of Sasquatch dander.
This is Hunter Muse.
And this is Chris Snipes, and you are listening
to The Melt.
What are we each willing to do to be free? How seriously do we take the concept of freedom? Better yet, what lengths are we willing to go to in order to experience true freedom? And how do we define freedom? The American Heritage Dictionary lists 3 definitions. 1, the condition of not being in prison or captivity. 2, the condition of being free from restraints, especially the ability to act without control or interference by another or by circumstance. And 3, the condition of not being controlled by another nation or political power. In the First Amendment of the Constitution, it states that, quote, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. In this case, freedom of religion means freedom of thought and the actions that result from said thoughts. When we operate as self-aware living men and women, we are governed by our own inner moral compass, not by any institution that claims to have our best interests in mind. Freedom of speech and press are self-explanatory. These are the roots of expression, all expression. Within the last few years, particularly within the last 2, many in our communities have seen this violated. A sure sign of the presence of propaganda is censorship. We've had episodes pulled from YouTube and have had our entire podcast removed from Spotify. Many have had their channels shut down and have been shadow banned just for expressing themselves out of the narrative, capital T, capital N. This is all unacceptable. Just because you might have 230 cable channels, 75 brands of breakfast cereal, 68 genders, and 2 fucking pathetic political parties to choose from, doesn't mean that you are anywhere remotely near being free. In our quest to explore the vast concept of personal freedom and autonomy, we decided to ask today's guest, Paul Enslaved, to come on the show and talk to us about how he sees it all. I start off the conversation by asking Paul how he got on this path.
So yeah, I mean, basically, it's kind of a lifelong process, journey, if you want to call it that. It starts off like a lot of the movies, some trauma, some unexpected events, mainly with my mother, having a stroke when I was born. She was supposed to die. I was supposed to die. Out of that came a lot of fear and confusion and inability to relate, within myself and to her, and then later on in life to women in general. So a lot of the upbringing for me was a lot of fear, pain, confusion. And again, like they say, the crack is where the light enters. The Tao is dark and radiant if you let it be. So a lot of times, and then I go back to the phoenix has to crash and burn before it rises higher. So I sit on the other side now and I realize that, a good majority of my life, like people say, oh, you didn't have it easy, you had a hard life. I don't choose to look at it that way. I think life taught me certain things, gave me certain lessons. And the best way for me to learn, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, is through pain and suffering. And I find that to be pretty ubiquitous across the board. When we see humanity right now, humanity in quotes, that's a whole other word we can get into. But, it seems that the majority of us don't learn and don't evolve until we're put through a certain amount of pain and suffering. So that's pretty much how I got onto the path of searching for a way to conduct myself, right? It started out with, I didn't feel good within myself. I have to seek some form of truth or understanding to change my inner space, right? And along that way, it started to encompass different, I guess, principles, understandings, fields, arts, if you want to call it that. I mean, people consider it different things, but it's all kind of on the journey to becoming a best version of self, right? Psychology, sociology, understanding history, words and terms, symbology. Yeah, so along the experience, the journey of 33 years, probably starting around, I'd say 16 through 18, I started to really awaken to something was wrong within me and intuitively with the world, I guess, if you want to call it that, or just society in quotes, right? Society in general. And yeah, from that time till now, it's been crystallizing more and more who and what I am, what I'm here to do, and what the world is here to teach me.
I like it. Yeah, and as this work seems to keep telling us, you really have to, if you want to. I mean, not that I'm not saying that you're out to change the world, but for those who are, you got to start with yourself. You got to clean your own house before you go imposing that on the external.
Absolutely. The scripture, one of the passages, cast the plank out of your own eye before you try to take the speck out of another's. So, that leads us back to the idea, like you said, if you want to change the world, you got to start with yourself, because one of the failings of mankind, another interesting word, is we're always using the five senses to look outwardly into the world and try to change something, control something, manipulate something in order to get a better outcome. It's very subtle and deceptive, right? Because the biggest change, most powerful change, comes from within. It sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true, right? On the journey to mastery, the truest form of mastery is self-mastery, right? That's a battle no one can take from you, and it's not going.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned really bravely, and I commend you for that, early childhood trauma. And it sounds like there was even some birth trauma that you had. How did you reconcile that, and how did your mom reconcile that? Did she come out from the other side of that stroke? What was the result of that?
So she basically had her speech and physicality reduced. Half her body didn't work, and her speech and her cognition was severely impaired. She pretty much spent all of my childhood drinking, watching television and drinking, pretty much not really being involved with me or life in general, because, they'll use different words for it. She had depression, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it's a lot for a being to go through that stuff. And, that became a theme in my life to cope with the whole situation was drugs. Her thing was alcohol. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't reconciliation. There wasn't resolution. That was part of what created the resistance, the confusion, that energy and motion, that emotion was nobody was seeking and searching for resolution and reconciliation. So, a lot of coping mechanisms, drugs and alcohol mainly, I've told it before, but I was a IV heroin addict at one point, for about 8 years or more. I'm not really good with the time. I don't ever sit down and think this stuff out and figure it all out. But I know that I started sniffing heroin around 19 years old, and I started shooting it very shortly after. It's just part of what happens with that stuff. Anyone who has any experience knows that's how it goes. And that continued for, a good, 7 to 9 years. I think it was 26, 27. So whatever that is. Yeah. And then I jails, rehabs, the whole deal. And, forced to look at myself, look within, become responsible, accountable, trustworthy, because I was lacking in all those areas, right? Self-esteem, self-worth. Yeah. It's a bit windy, and, for the listeners, I'm now at a, in the air quotes, right? I'm at an off-grid property, even though it actually is. I mean, it's the new phrase now. So I don't want people to think that it's about being trendy. I'm not doing off-gridding because it's trendy. I'm doing it because I want to create my own power. I want to grow my own food. I want my own source of water. Yeah, I'm weird like that. I want to be self-sufficient and not bound and controlled by outside influence.
I think the fascinating part.
Good activity.
I think the fascinating part about what your origin story encompasses is that in many regards, you were outside of the system because you didn't grow up in what could be considered like a traditional family experience, whatever that is. That seems that's a broad term, but in some ways that seems to have laid the groundwork for your interest in sovereignty, because it seems, from my perspective, it seems like the system didn't work for you. And whether that be the parental system or the family unit, the system that you were born into wasn't one that was bolstering or supporting you to move forward in your life. And so it seems like it was easy for you to fall down these rabbit holes of drugs and the kind of alternate lifestyles, because the regular life, in quotes, wasn't supporting you. So can you talk a little bit about that transition? You mentioned that you did have some run-ins with the police prior to this. Do you think that inspired you to seek out more information about being a free, sovereign human?
Yeah, I mean, I've had different experiences along the way. One of which was at that time starting to experiment in court. I think that the spirit. I can't really speak on anybody else's spirit and how that moves, but I know that when I look back on it, there was always something a little bit different when it came to the spirit. I mean, they tell me from day one, they were calling me wild man in the birthing area, if you want to call it that, birthing, right? But where I was born, it's there's something about that. I've had a reverend who was 90 something years old in rehab go, every once in a while somebody's born under a sign or whatever, however he put it, and I don't like to think that way, because it's not about me being special. So it's about us addressing insecurities, right? Because like they say, if you want to learn how to do something right, learn how to do it wrong first. The problem is in life is the culture, as you were alluding to. People think it works for them. And because things go on for so long and the status quo is maintained, people think this stuff works for them. It's the person who becomes extremely aware of their humanity, their insecurity, the lack of self-sustainability. That is a being who is now opened up to the idea of possibilities and potential, right? It doesn't have to be a scary negative thing. It can be when you're going through it. But again, that's the difference between seeking truth and seeking comfort. Most folks will ignore a bunch of insecurities in their life. It's almost like you said, a lot of times we have to have our quote unquote heart broken or our ego checked, or just have our consciousness and awareness drawn to the fact of how much we don't know or we don't understand, or how much things are not working for us. We don't have principles and foundation to lean on. We have a bunch of family members and systems, hierarchical, right? Familial and societal. And that is one of the downfalls, I believe.
I feel like you covered something that's really important in all of this, and it is the fact that some people are kind of placated or numbed into compliance when they grow up in a very easy life, where the system doesn't seem to be constraining or confining them in any way. And so it's easy to comply because you're not really confronted by anything. So in some regards, I think that your childhood was a blessing, because it kind of puts you on this outside of consensus reality. And by the very nature of how you were raised, you were kind of put into a position to question reality. And what do you feel like that speaks any truth to your circumstance?
Yeah, absolutely. There's sort of this way that I see it where at first, like they say, we'll use the cliches, the rebel without a cause, right? Somebody who's just at war with themselves, something they haven't dealt with or made right, and it causes them to act out. Now, when you come from this perspective, obviously there's a functional, I'm not going to use the term rebellion necessarily, but what I'm getting at here is the perspective, and you do the full circle, you start to realize that it's not the individual who follows his own path, right, and discovers or creates himself by learning through firsthand experience. That is not the rebel. The rebels are those who continue to live in these cultural, and I love the root word of that, cult. I always have to point that out. I'll do it a million times if I have to. These cultural paradigms that we all grow up in and have to live in and conform to are the antithesis of co-creation with the supernatural, right? I like to use the pronunciation of the word to really get it home to the mind and heart what we're talking about here. This is not a mystical experience. It's supernatural. Means in and of co-creating with nature. The majority of cultures on the earth subscribe to certain tenets. It makes them anti-life, right? To live backward is spelled evil, right? So to live backward is evil. This is all we're describing and trying to get an understanding to ourselves and to folks about is this idea of you can live with the supernatural or you can live backward with your cultural, man-made ideas of how the world works and try to remake the world in your own image. One will create a kingdom of heaven. The other will create a hell on earth. We're seeing it now, right? If one were to come out here and see me with the plants and the weather and the animals that I'll bring up here and co-create with rather than enslave and destroy for my own quote unquote survival, it's the closest thing you're going to get to security and a kingdom of heaven while we're here, right? And there's nothing mystical or otherworldly about it. Co-creating with what we have and not controlling, destroying, dominating, or going in resistance to what is in order to feel some form of security, which is what a lot of us are doing in the modern day world.
And it's a false sense of security because you're not really secure if you are not sovereign in your own being and you're not living in a sense of your own totality. I think that's one of the confusions that some people have about the idea of sovereignty and natural law and universal law is this idea that, well, we have laws written on the books and those are the laws that govern us as human beings, but they're not really constitutional laws. We've seen that in the past 2 years that
So let's touch on this real quick. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify before I forget for anybody who's listening. We need to make distinguishing remarks about what this all is.
Yes.
There's statute, policy, and code on the books.
Yes.
Which is only given the force of law through the consent of the governed as per the Declaration of Independence. So what folks don't know, the little secret, and now this is why I don't use the term sovereign. I don't need to use it anyway. I don't necessarily like the term. I think sentient is a better term because they're now taking the word sovereign and creating a movement out of it. You're a sovereign citizen.
Yes.
And all this. If we really understand what is going on here, and I guess we can go into this if you'd like, the idea of people versus person, right?
Yeah.
How the Constitution speaks to we the people versus you summoning to appear in person.
Mm-hmm.
They're not the same thing. The law is expressed. It's not implied. The ignorance of the law is no excuse.
Right.
Right. So all you have to do is go to any law dictionary and you'll understand the confusion is happening because folks are identifying as citizens and then wanting their sovereignty. So that is a proper terminology they use on folks like that, right? If you contract in and you agree to certain duties, obligations, and responsibilities, whether you know it or not, you filled out the paper, you signed your name, follow the code, right? So you cannot be a sovereign citizen just by definition.
Right.
Now, you can identify or present, because we don't want to identify as anything other than what we are. So we have to present as a man on the land, right? There's the state of Arizona and Arizona state. They're two very different things. One is a corporate body politic, a fictitious entity, a metaphysical entity, a black and white on paper entity. And then there is Arizona state, right? The state of is the corporation. They'll say you're in the state of, it's a state of being, versus Arizona state, right? There's two senators for each state because one body governs the land and one body governs the corporate body politic. The politicians will call the unspoken social contract. So if folks would correct their status and standing and stop identifying as members of the body politic, the demosocracy, corporate United States of America in all capital letters with their all caps person, right? They would stop identifying in capacity. They would not have to follow policy and code because, as I said, it's not me overthrowing or rebelling against God's law, the law of the land. Ironically, I've come from rebellion to resolution. The only way out of this is to uphold God's law, universal law, and what we call constitutional law. But first, we have to truly understand it, right? Not think that we understand it and make all on paper showing that we don't.
So what is the difference between natural law and universal law, or is there a difference at all?
So again, a lot of this, I guess, no one can claim to completely know what universal law would be from the perspective of the universe.
Yeah, sure.
Right? We can't know the Tao or the universe or God, but we can be it to a degree, right? We can understand true enough. So to me, an example of like a universal law would be anywhere that I go in the world, pretty much, other than completely, again, dysfunctional, imbalanced, usually male dominator, ego societies, I can go anywhere I want and do whatever I please as long as I'm not causing any loss, injury, or harm. And if somebody tries to interfere with me and my right to seek property and happiness without causing loss, injury, and harm, they are a wrongdoer. And the reason why this quote unquote movement, it's not a movement, it's a state of understanding. It's a state of being and consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it's taking off everywhere is because humans innately, inherently, their spirit yearns to be free and make their own choices and decisions. Oftentimes we know we're being misled by our own mind and our own brain chemistry at times, right? But the human spirit, especially in times like we are in now, where everything is being forced to be questioned because the dark forces have completely brought the inversion reality out into the open, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a perfect state of affairs. That's why I always say everything is as it should be. And they'll say, oh, he's a dark Mason because he's saying that this evil should be allowed to exist and whatever. I'm not the arbiter of the universe.
Yeah.
Evil and good has always and will always exist here. What are we doing to co-create the kingdom of heaven here? And the answer when I ride up and down the highways is little to nothing, because everyone's got their license to move their property.
Right.
Everyone's got their license to carry their firearm.
Right.
Everyone's got their medical license to carry God's plan. Every single one of them have signed on with the Akashic record as followers of man's code over universal law and conscience, which was given to them at their creation. They've rebuked the creational conscience and common sense within all of us. That's why they say common sense is no longer common. And now they're followers of man and man's law, and they will be obviously put into suffering and death. People perish for lack of knowledge of self and the universe.
Well, you brought up an interesting point, because a lot of what the police operate with and by is probable cause. So if you're driving down a highway and you don't have a license plate, for example, what they are going to say, and I'm conjecting here, what they're going to say is that they have probable cause to stop you, even though you are not doing anything that is intended to cause harm to anyone. You are.
And what was your name again? I just want to make sure that I have your name in my head.
Hunter.
Hunter. That's right, Hunter. So that's exactly the point, right? That part of common law is when you live in a country where everybody believes the slavery, it's now become commonplace and common law that you must display a plate. So when you don't, it's presumed and assumed, right? That's what we go presumption, assumption, tacit agreement, and hearsay. So it's presumed and assumed that if you're not displaying some kind of plate, something must be up because everyone else does it. It's common law.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So what kind of, do you have any sort of plate or place marker or anything on your vehicle?
Yeah. So I was running the private plate, which again, I've had a positive experience that's logged. I've had quote unquote negative experience. I don't choose to look at it that way because it only gets me better at what I'm doing. So currently, when I move my property around, I use a USDOT plate, right, where I have recorded with the USDOT that I am a private carrier of non-commercial goods for non-commercial use. So one could say that I'm recorded with the federal agency. However, I am not subject to any of the codes and policies because under the recording, I am an unlicensed mover of private property, a private carrier, which again, if we go to the federal definitions, and I want someone, anyone, anywhere to just come to me and tell me why the definitions of words vary from federal to state to local laws. How does that happen? Why is it allowed to continue? And does everyone believe that that's okay? Because if we can't come to an understanding of words and terms and what they mean objectively, then we're living in bizarro world because it's whatever they say it is. So under the federal, right, which is supposed to be a superior form of law to state and local, right, checks and balances. The feds are not above being checked either, which is why we can grow reefer and smoke it because we've decided that in the pursuit of property and happiness, that the federal code does not apply to us. That's legitimate. What you can't do is take local and state law, override the federal protections that are there in U.S. code to protect us from false obligations and securities, which they're generating on the side of the road. If you go read the U.S. code, it's deprivation of rights under color of law and about 10 other things. Those codes are not by accident. They're put there to protect us. That's our remedy outside of local and state courts, who a lot of which want to run a RICO, right? They want to get together. They want to conspire to deprive folks of rights. But again, I can't completely blame them because we're back to every single slave has a license in their pocket. Every single slave has their private property registered as state property. And see, now they'll get mad at me and say, you shouldn't be calling people slaves. Well, see, when I call out on one side what the agents and agency do, because they know damn well that this is fraud and that this isn't legitimate contract, and none of these slaves know what they've gotten themselves into. It's all misrepresentation. They go along with it because, again, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Let he who wish to be deceived be deceived. These are maxims in law. So, again, we have a sort of black robe, grim reaper, dark force, shaitan mirror of the light in order to get us right. Because these folks would not ever take on full accountability and responsibility if it wasn't someone there literally forcing them into contract and giving them these word games and forcing them to go look at who and what they are and what they keep showing up for and having to answer to. Why are they not accountable to the Most High? Right? So I love the whole game and how it all works. And I kind of got off there. If you want to kind of refocus me a little bit.
Well, I think one of the arguments would be jurisdiction. So if you are in, let's say I lived in Arizona for a while. Let's say I was in Tempe, Arizona, and I got in trouble with local police. The feds are not going to come in and be involved in a case that involves me unless I've committed what is considered a federal crime.
Sure, but you could sue in federal court, though, no? That's why a lot of these folks go to Superior Court and then Supreme Court because the locals are corrupt, right? It's all a money-generating scheme that they misread the code or they're mistrained to read the code. A lot of these folks are not actively waking up every day and saying, I'm going to fraud people today. They have 10, 15, 20 years in believing Like you just said, that jurisdiction means the place you're at rather than the Latin, which is jurisdiction means to say the law. So you can only have jurisdiction if somebody consents because it literally means to say the law. It's a form of contracting. So they'll say, you watch what they do. They'll walk up the first three things they want: license, registration, insurance. Those are forms of contract. That's how they get jurisdiction, because the law is on paper, that's spoken or written on paper, and you've consented to it. Now, a lot of them don't understand this. They'll believe, right, or they've been trained that jurisdiction means a place on the map, but we're not talking about Arizona State. We're talking about the state of Arizona.
Right.
It's a corporate body. It's a corporate entity. So they will say, in the state of. Now, why do they choose these words? See, this is what I always love. People say, you're making things up. You think this is accidents or mistakes? Oh, you're in the state of Colorado right now, right? Yeah, sure. Great. Now we have jurisdiction because you just agreed to what we said, that you're in something right now.
Right.
Are you on the land known as Colorado, or are you in the state of Colorado? Right? In the state of something means it's a part of your beingness. So that's how they get you. It's words and terms and sorcery. Now, again, do most agents know this? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. They just know they're trained to walk up and ask for certain things and then reconfer with their superior. And the head solicitor prosecutor, he knows the game. He knows how it all works. I'm on the phone with them where they'll play the words with me. I'll say, you're a man, right? No, I'm an adult male. Well, I can't interact or intercourse with you because you're not of the same species. An adult male is an animal. That's how you describe an animal. You know, go look at it in words and terms. Masculine and feminine applies to humans. Male, female applies to animal, cattle, chattel, which is what we're considered, right? So they can't interact with man and woman. They can only interact with other agent and agencies, other fictitious entity. That's why they call out the all caps name, appear as a person. Oh, are you this person? Yeah, sure. Now you just put on a mask. You're agent and agency, because a person under U.S. code is considered either a natural person or a legal person. That all caps name is not a natural person. It's capitis diminutio maxima. It's the maximum diminishment of your capacity. It means you've been turned from a representative of the Most High into a corporate entity. So under the U.S. code, if people would just go look at this, when you're appearing in person, you're being summoned like an entity, a dead entity, to appear in person, a legal person, not a natural person. So you've given up your right, status, and standing, and now they're going to drag you around the room. And who do they call the prosecutor, the agent across the room from you? Well, he's the people, right? Of course, because they have to reverse the roles. You're appearing as agent and agency with duties, responsibilities, and obligations, code, statute, and policy, which has only ever been written to govern government agencies, never man, woman. And now government say, we're the people and we're here with all the benefits and rights, and we're going to drag you around the room. So because of the nature of how we appear and the status and standing in which we appear in court is why we lose, and why the people who are supposed to serve us serve the corporate body, because of how we've appeared or presented, right? They'll call it, you need representation.
So what is the real meaning of identification in this context? How do you lose your rights in regards to ID?
Well, if I walked up to you and I said, will you, and everyone's doing it nowadays. See, if you notice, these conditions in a courtroom carry over to everything in life, because you are who you are in anything you do and everything you do. It's just to what degree. So now you have folks, I'm identifying as a woman, I'm identifying as a man, I'm identifying as a dog. We're in the age of identifying as something other than what you are. So they'll say you will identify. It means you will take on a persona, a mask. That's what persona means in Latin, a mask. You will wear a mask. You will take on an identity. You will cloak yourself as man and woman, because we know we can't regulate man and woman. We can, however, regulate person, right? So we can't regulate people, but we can regulate persons, because under U.S. code, there's two persons. You're presumed to be a legal person when you contract as that all capital letters name, until you correct your status as the representative of that legal person. I have a legal person, but I will not identify as it. I use it, but I am not it. I am the man.
Mm-hmm. So personally, what do you use or do you have any sort of ID? Some people, I know that
I have credentials.
Okay.
I have credentials, right? That's the difference between identification and a credential. My credential describes who and what I am. I'm a man. Here's when I was born. Your identification describes how they turned you from a man into a corporation. You were birthed. They birthed him at the dock like a vessel, and they created a corporate persona, a mask, that you've now done business as everywhere you've gone. And you've contracted to take on obligations and duties of that person, which is bound by code, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the purpose of teaching everyone to go down and make these contracts and agreements and sign their name and not know how to do it correctly. And then when they identify as the person, well, now we have 11.4 million things we can govern you with. Does it make sense? Common sense, in the sense of code and policy and statute was only ever there to govern age and right? Man and woman is governed by law, God's law. So it's innate. It's part of our conscience. We know not to lie, cheat, steal, and murder. But because we've become so fallen and reprobate where we lie, cheat, steal, and murder on a day-to-day basis, a force has had to come in to govern our behavior because we've not learned how to govern ourselves. That's what people talk about sovereignty. I don't like the word. It's about governing the self. Do you think the average public can govern themselves? They show every single day that they're not capable and unwilling to, right? Maybe they're capable, they're unwilling to, right? And I know firsthand because I could be out in the middle of nowhere and someone's going to call up and complain on me rather than come over and have a conversation with me.
Exactly. They're going to appeal to authority as opposed to have a direct interaction with you.
Because it's more difficult to take on full accountability and responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like what's going on over there? Change it.
Yeah.
Nah, we want to sit back, do nothing, be nothing. Call somebody else up that we supposedly pay for to come handle our issues for us. And you wonder why they're going to handle them all right. Because you can't govern yourself. You've represented yourself as a child. That's what they'll talk about. Wards of the state. You know, the person is another one, a minority. You have a lot of folks standing up who have different skin tones, and they will identify as a minority, and they will do it proudly. Hey, I'm a minority. I have civil rights. Great. You just gave those rich people, however you want to look at it, right? Because it's not about class warfare, but you just gave the aristocracy complete jurisdiction over you because a minority is the same thing as a child. It's a ward of a state, right? A minority. So they've given us these words and terms to parrot and repeat so we can give up all of our status and standing. You know, go look at the Moors, different cultures who will say, I'm not a part of your culture and your society. You know, look at me and how I dress and look at my culture and understand that I ride with God's law. So in court, they win all the time. And people, a lot of times on my YouTube, they'll bash me and yell at me. They'll say, this guy's out here teaching false stuff. He's going to get a lot of people hurt. I'm not telling people to do anything other than follow their heart and their spirit, right? And understand the difference between legal and lawful.
Yeah, they're still stuck in that dichotomy of being told, like you're there preaching what people should do when you're doing the exact opposite. You're wanting people to do their own research, and sovereignty isn't about listening to somebody else and going, that sounds like a great idea. I think I'll do it. You know, yeah, it doesn't work that way.
That's what got us into this mess. You know, the follower culture. You see on all the media nowadays, everybody's so proud to be a follower. Oh, everyone's following everybody, right? Who's leading, right? And then they talk about making America great again. How can you have America great again when it's populated by people who aren't good, let alone great, right? And then we have to get back to what do these words and terms mean? What is goodness? What is greatness? You know, what makes a man or woman great throughout history and throughout the ages? It's only a certain set of things. I don't care who they are and where they're from. It's a set of principles and understanding that being embodied, right?
Sure. So do you think that government is an appropriate institution for those who aren't aware of even the concept of sovereignty?
That's the thing, is that this is all cause and effect. If you demonstrate, which people can no longer get mad at me and hate on me, all you have to go do is look at the numbers. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't. The numbers will tell the tale. How many folks, and I don't know if we're quote unquote allowed to talk about it, but that's part of the problem in America is we're now not allowed to talk about certain things on certain platforms. But, you know, we'll speak in a sense of where everyone knows what we're talking about without addressing it directly. Over the last 2 years, you've seen everybody, not everybody, I don't want to make complete extreme statements. You've seen the vast majority of folks around the world sell their ability to choose, their ability to think for themselves, and their ability to co-create with a higher level of consciousness for another day of security within the system, right? Mm-hmm. So that's a bunch of folks who have demonstrated, said, if I could die tomorrow, these folks are on record now. The last 2 years was a test.
Can you govern yourself and your own affairs in the face of challenges and adversity and fears? And the answer is no. As soon as you get challenges, adversity, and fears, you slave right up. You look for the closest code book or the closest agent, okay? You start repeating words like mandate when mandate in civil law means a request, because you don't even know enough to look into the words you're using because you're completely unconscious. This is all about consciousness and awareness. How many words and terms we use day in and day out, don't understand what they mean and where they come from. And then people are parroting it, taking my rights. It's on video on my YouTube, taking my rights everywhere I go, interfering with my rights, right? Because they don't understand the meanings of words and terms. If you're willing to believe absurdities, you will commit atrocities. When did our public servants in America become our controllers and dictators? When we let them.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. For sure. You got anything? No. Let's see. What is it's another term that's thrown around in the sovereign community, if there is such a thing, just for the sake of the conversation. What is maritime law?
Okay, so this is, from my understanding, would be like the law of the sea. If other folks equate law, it's commerce, because like, okay, I'll give you the term. They'll say, you're trafficking and transporting.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about commercial maritime law, essentially, where they're saying you're violating transportation code, because we're back to the day when we got berth at the dock. That's what they call when they put a ship in its berth at the dock door,
Yeah.
right? And they give you a berth certificate, and they've created a commercial vessel. So it's the same way they'll talk about your vehicle. The same idea. It's a vessel. So we're using essentially maritime words and terms, because a lot of this stuff, I guess, goes back to the time when folks started moving around in vessels on the water, and there wasn't law of the land to govern them and keep them. There had to be some code, right? Like they'll talk about in the Pirates of the Caribbean, your boy there, he's now up in court every day. That's the biggest news for everybody. But, he'll get on there and he'll talk about the code parlay, right? Because there had to be a code established to govern men and women who were moving about, lying, cheating, stealing, taking property that wasn't theirs, on and on and on. So again, a lot of this stuff comes out of trying to keep order where there is chaos. And then it, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Then it just turns into a business of, okay, we're going to do business here or come past these lines. We're going to tax you and take something from you if you don't contract with us. Because everything is an offer, right? You can go anywhere, any paperwork, or anytime they give you a paper and tell you to sign, they're making an offer.
Yeah.
You're agreeing to contract, right? So under UCC 1308, I believe, which has been adopted as interstate law nationwide, it says you cannot be forced in any contract, right? So that is commercial law, that is maritime law, whatever you want to call it, and it governs all these people and these service providers. And they'll say UCC is not law. Well, it actually is. It's a uniform commercial code, so that it governs all of our interactions commercially with doing business. That's what banking or benching is. The judge sits on a bench, which is Latin for bank, and they're doing commerce. They're generating bonds and securities, right? So when we understand that this is all about commerce and banking and how we present versus represent, and realize that, there is a level of this, of folks who beg for this system and want this system. And I've come to the place, going from hating it to understanding that it may as well be necessary. So I let the slaves who want to be regulated under corporate policy, they can have that. And when I choose to stand as a man and embody my natural rights, I have that right in this country, thank God. And I wish for that to be upheld, excuse me.
And so in this system too, we are seen as merchandise also, right?
Well, that's the thing, right? And people will talk about the birth certificate. The birth certificate can be a good thing. It can be a negative thing. The Bible can be a good thing. It can be a negative thing. It's about the perception of the wielder and the user, right? If you birth someone and you create a vessel, that can be great. Now, I can take all physical liability and tie it to my commercial liability, and I just pay on it. Oh, we had an accident. Somebody got harmed. Cool.
I'll just pay you off. We'll compensate to the best of our ability as long as it's not malicious. As long as I didn't wake up that morning and say I'm going to kill somebody, accidents happen. So I'll take on the commercial liability through my person and I'll pay it off over the rest of my life rather than you hang me in town square. You see what I'm saying? So it can work for us. It can also work against us because if you don't have the legal person, if you identify as the legal person, then you've essentially created a surety bond between your physical form, you know, your natural person and the legal person. So now the man has taken on that commercial liability and they'll put you in a cage to extract that value from you. Because again, privatized prison is about taking the product, warehousing it, and then collecting a revenue of keeping that product there based on taxpayer money, which I guess at some point we've crossed the bridge between public and private. And that's sort of the issue, right? Is we're all mixing public and private law. You know, a man is supposed to be a private man in his private affairs and uphold the law. And we're now mixing the law with what's legal in public, right? Public policy.
So it is one of the main goals of sort of disengaging from the system is to stay away from any sort of contractual interaction with the system, like not signing anything.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. You have, and this is the problem, is you go look at the paperwork and then they'll tell me, well, Paulie's not accepting everything that's put forth just as it's put forth. Yeah, I'm weird like that. I don't just accept everything that's put forth. I come to my own determination and understanding. So again, this is part of the whole idea of you can't try a man and say that he does wrong if he really believes in his heart what he's saying and doing. That's where the word conviction comes from. I have a conviction in my heart. So you can't convict me if I didn't believe that I was doing wrong. So refocus me there again. I got off a little bit because there's so many words and terms that I kind of want to cover, man.
I just started it off by asking if one of the main ways of navigating all this is to avoid any kind of contractual interaction with the system.
Okay. So you go look at the birth certificate, right? There'll be 2 dates on there and they'll probably use birth somewhere in both. One is a birth date, one is a birth registration date. As far as I'm concerned, there's a born date and a birth date, right? So your born date is that date they call your birth date. Your birth registration date, that's your birth date, right? So you have a born date and you have a birth date. There was a date when the man was created or came into the world, not even created. He's been there already for 9 months, however long. But the man has now come into the world on the born day. And then a month later, a week later, however long later, the person was created. That's the birthday. So when you present a credential, you should not be showing a picture of your happy face and a birthday, right? Mm-hmm. Which is your born date.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is making any sense to you, but like you should have a credential as a man, and then you should have a legal person, which you use to do legal business. You should not be presenting a legal person as who and what you are, right? So when we go and fill out and do the paperwork, well, then you should be giving the birth registration date. You shouldn't be giving your born date. So there's a lack of understanding, as far as I'm concerned, of record keeping. Because now when you go to access that account to charge me, right, just like you would any other account, I'm going to charge you with this, this, and this from this code. You're charging the legal person, not the man, right? Because I've given you a credential. So you're either going to charge the legal person and I'm going to represent that, right? I'm the authorized representative, just like a credit card holder, or you're going to charge the man, in which case I'm going to be held in one jurisdiction or the other, commercial or common law constitutional. The problem is we're mixing jurisdictions, right? Because you're showing a man on the card and you're putting down the legal person's birthday. And then they're handing you paperwork and saying, well, you just sign right here when you come out of court. Go look at it. There's 2 people there. There's upper lowercase name. And then on the other side, it will say all caps name. They're asking you to sign as the man to connect yourself with the legal person. That's what a surety bond is. They want you to perform and be obligated as a man for what they're claiming the person did. See, it's all about words and term games and, again, jurisdiction to say the law and mixing public and private jurisdiction.
How did you
ask any judge, quote unquote, magistrate? I don't mean to cut you off. Ask any magistrate when you go in there.
how many jurisdictions does court preside over? They'll tell you, like they told me in Colorado, we have administrative, which basically means commercial, and we have common law / constitutional. One governs men and women, which there's very little to talk about because unless I cause loss, injury, and harm, you can't govern me. Right? So there's one that governs man and woman, and there's one that governs legal persons. It's about how you appear and how you present. And if you're represented by somebody else, you definitely ain't a man or woman, because man or woman doesn't ever let another man or woman talk for them when they have firsthand knowledge. They present themselves completely honorably, respectfully, truthfully, and unwavering.
Are there any states that are more common law friendly than others?
We want to believe so. If you ask everybody, they'll say, oh, this state's the worst, this state's the best. I've been pretty much all over, and what I would say is there's a common theme anywhere you go. There may be pockets where the culture just sort of hasn't died off. It may tend to be in places, it's kind of common sense, where people are still living on the land. They're still having to be responsible and accountable for themselves. There's still men and women out there, right? There's not a bunch of corporate, inauthentic males and females who don't know who and what they are, what their place in this world is, other than a cubicle serving someone else's purpose and vision, right? So when you get back to the land, ironically enough, there seems to be more of this idea of value systems, principles, and interpersonal, dare I use the word person, right? But for colloquial reasons, interpersonal relationships. They care about how they're seen by the other men and women in the community and vice versa. So, but yeah, like anything else, we're in a time now where this cult has pervaded all people and places, and everywhere you go, pretty much everyone's under the same belief that statute, policy, and code is a governing body for them in their life.
And also in more rural places too, people are more of a cohesive community. They're more apt to know each other, to have grown up around each other, to know each other's relatives. So that makes for more recognition of humans, whereas in maybe a bigger, larger city, people are more anonymous, and they lose track of the natural order of things because they're dealing with all these false, fake entities that just see them as statistics and numbers and nothing personal whatsoever, not anything remotely resembling a human being.
Well, that's part of the thing, right? Is that like what you put out is what you get back. So you have this cycle of everybody pretty much on a reward system like Pavlov, teaching them that every time that they toe the inauthentic line and do what's against their intuition or their conscience, they get a little reward and a bump up. See, that's the counterintuitive part of how this system all allows folks who reject their mind and heart and their own self to rise to the top, right? That's why a lot of times, people will blame the system. I don't blame the system, but I can analyze it and see the failings and the weakness in it. And we can argue over whether it's done on purpose or not. It doesn't really much matter, because I will say once again, if it is done on purpose, it's still a good thing, because from what I've seen, men and women are not going to present themselves as men and women and do what's true and what's right and go past their fears until it gets bad enough, whatever that means to the individual. Just like me, I wouldn't get off the heroin and stop overdosing until I finally, hit rock bottom, as they say, right? When it gets bad enough where you really start to take account of your life and how you got there and where you're going and what this all means. But, as long as that gravy train is moving, as long as that paycheck and pension's coming in, as long as everybody continues to get validation for observing the policy and code rather than observing universal law, what's true and what's right, what's equitable, what's trustworthy, because we can get into how this is all about trust. That's another concept, another form of law. It's all the same deal. The trust is broken when the servants stop serving and start controlling and dominating. They swore to uphold God's law. That's part of their oath and affirmation, right? But again, we're in a culture nowadays where an oath to God doesn't really mean much.
Exactly.
It's about that Molech and that Mammon, right? It's about that bottom line numbers on paper.
Well, it's also interesting that this is something that people have just been indoctrinated into. So when let's say you have a child in a hospital, they don't really give you the option to have a birth certificate or not.
There's always an option.
Right.
There's always an option.
Right. But people don't understand that they can exercise that option. So if you go into an institution, there's this idea that you have to comply with the paperwork. You have to go.
So what's the root of that? What's the root of that?
I think it's spiritual laziness. I just think it's a lack of critical thinking skills. People don't push back. It's like, oh, like I had a family member who had a baby in a hospital, and the baby was immediately low jacked. Like they put a security monitor on the child. Literally the second he came out of the womb, he was immediately cuffed. And the idea was like, well, this is so that no one steals your baby. Because people walk into the hospital all the time, walk into maternity wards, and they'll literally steal a child. So they put this cuff on the baby's ankle so that if someone takes the child and tries to get the child out of the maternity ward, the doors lock in front of them and police are called immediately.
Wow.
So the first introduction to this child's life is immediately having a shackle on their ankle.
Sure, just like we do with our animals day to day, and this is something that I talk about more frequently. And there's people who understand this, and they're thankful that I bring forth this perspective. And there's other people who they can't stand it. But the same way that we've been treating animals for a very long time is the way that we're now being treated, because we've identified as animals with the words and terms, whether we know it or not, right? What is a mankind? Kind of like a man, not really. It's some kind of beast. Mm-hmm. So when we get back to, I had a, that's why a lot of times I'll interrupt and I come off like I'm cutting you off or being rude.
No.
I get an idea on something that you had said, and then I can kind of lose the train of thought.
We were talking about why people comply when they have a child in the hospital with the birth certificate.
Yeah,
okay, so it all starts with fear and faith, right? And this is back to the idea of there's two base emotions, love and fear. I don't like what the term love has turned into. There's a misunderstanding there, so we'll go with faith. If folks would understand that there is some program and plan and that we can run it without institutions, they would have faith in allowing that being to be born and not even bringing it to an institution. But everything starts and continues with a series of fears, right? So what I say is, whether it's conscious or subconscious, and a lot of people don't like this, most people don't care enough to do the right thing, to search, seek truth, do what's true and what's right. It seems to be a lot easier and a lot more comforting to give responsibility and accountability over to someone else. And it's a very sick dynamic, because the same way that people vote for presidents to destroy this country collectively and then blame it on the opposition is the same way people take their children, their state property is one version of what that word means, to a public school and allow them to be abused and tortured and poisoned and indoctrinated, then turn around and blame the school when they were supposed to be the ones to protect their own and didn't and failed. See, it's a lot easier when you're not response-able and account-able to just continue to throw your young ones into the fire of Molech and Ammon and then blame them, right? It's a very, and again, a lot of people don't like that because it's very dark dynamic. If you get into the subconscious and what's going on there, most people don't like themselves, don't really care about themselves. They don't care about their offspring, another interesting word. Right? It's animal terminology. So, most people don't, and they're really, okay, we'll give you the scripture. Many will look with their eyes and not see, with the ears listen and not hear, with the heart not get the sense of it. Most people in their heart have either been heartbroken or their care has not been nurtured and activated to the point where they can really be willful and stand for what's true and what's right. So like anything else, has to be worked like a muscle. When you see wrong being done, when you get activated from the inside out by conscience, which your God, whatever you believe that is, put that there, the universe put that there, you're supposed to use the word and speak on it and correct that wrong. If you continue to live a whole life of avoiding those moments because it's uncomfortable, it's embarrassing, it's fearful, then you'll do that in again, you are who you are in anything you do and everything you do. People show up to court timid, fearful, insecure, not willing to speak truth. So that's why they get controlled and dominated.
Right. And we're taught not to trust our instinct. So you take someone who's pregnant, for example, and you throw them into the allopathic medical system, what they're taught and told is that everything that they feel is probably erroneous or somehow is invalid. It's not necessary. So if you have a child, of course, you're going to go to the authority of the doctor and listen to whatever the doctor says, because the doctor is educated in the normal sense of the word. So we assume that the doctor has the best intentions for the infant and the mother. So I think that's where a lot of this starts, is that the erosion of this has not just been man's version or man's idea of himself or herself, but going into these systems and allowing these systems to have more authority over the man and the woman. I think that's what's
dictate reality, right?
Exactly. I think that's what's fucked us up. And so a woman who goes into a hospital to have an infant, it's a very fearful time. So if the doctor says, well, let's give him 12 vaccines and we're going to cut off the head of the penis and we're going to do this and you're just going to go along with it because you're in this very vulnerable, probably the most vulnerable state as a woman that you can be in, and you're looking for an authority, you're looking for guidance, and you don't have a doula or, 3 generations of mother, grandmother, and great grandmother there that are helping you walk through that. So your community.
You know why that is also? Because it's a feedback loop of look around you and tell me how many men, true men that you have around you, right? How many women have to look to the state because they don't have men around them who will do what's true and what's right regardless of outcome?
Sure.
I'll wait, because every other woman I talk to, when they really get real with themselves and me, will say, and this is not an egoic statement, they'll say, we need more men like you, Paul. And I say, it's not about that. You can play the ego game all you want. It's not about stroking my ego. I'm doing what's true and what's right regardless of outcome. So it may be a true case. When every other man starts to do that, women will look to them as a state. But the women already know in their mind and heart and their genetics archetypally, they know these men ain't men. They've seen it. They've seen it too often, right? They know they're a walking paycheck. They're a walking benefit and privilege. Just like the government, walking benefit and privilege. But who's the protector at the end of the day?
Well, we've emasculated men as a culture. We have degraded the divine feminine. So we've taken everything that's good about women, and now we're saying those criteria apply to men. So now men can have babies. Now men can have breasts. Now men can have manufactured vaginas. So what this has done is it's completely eroded the humanness from both sexes. So now men don't know how to be a man and women don't know how to be a woman, because that's not what society is telling you to do or be. Like, taking care of your family is the worst thing that a woman could do or want to do, like feed her children properly.
Non-empowering.
Exactly.
Because she's giving up, again, her legal person status, right? She's not in the corporate world now.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the juice, the electricity, the mammon, the Molech. She doesn't have the thing that makes the gears grind, right? Or the gears work. So, again, this is all a culture, a cult of indoctrination that it talks about in scripture from day one, that the folks who worship in the groves, we can talk about Bohemian Grove and that whole thing. I know it's conspiracy theory and all that.
Oh.
But the ones who worship in the groves bring about the owl, Molech, who sees in the dark while the rodents get picked off.
Yep.
It's Mammon and Molech. It's a system of corporate servitude where money is the highest value system. right? And it replaces all principles because it is the thing that we create with and from. It is an extension of our thoughts, emotions, and actions. You know, we go to bed and wake up 5 days a week thinking about how we're going to produce that thing so we can get the things we need when the things we need have been provided to us through the universe and in our community.
Exactly.
And then they'll say, oh, Paulie's a communist and a socialist, while they're paying taxes and being socialized, while they're in a collectivist mindset, in demosocracy.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
50% of the culture wasn't being taxed. So that's one of the reasons we want to erode the family unit is those are employees that we could be taxing. And it also, I think another level of that, and Chris and I have talked about this ad nauseum, but I think another level of this is the vulnerability, because what it's done is it's made a male or a female, a man and woman child in that family unit. It's completely made them vulnerable to whoever's influence. If the mother is not home and the father's not, you got both of the parents out working, then the children are more easy to indoctrinate into whatever system, school system, media system you want them to get indoctrinated into, because there's no one there. There's no checks and balances. There's no one there to observe.
So basically what you're saying, this is a crazy idea breakthrough right now. It's not supernatural for the mother and father to leave the nest and to take the child and put them in the hands of complete strangers who, ironically enough, have a complete bestial system that they want to continue to uphold and create. It's what we call a beast of burden, right?
Sure.
Burden that I have to uphold. So I've become lower in my frequency and consciousness to the point where I'm beneath an animal, because an animal would never do this behavior.
Exactly.
This is why I say to people, you're killing animals who have enough common sense to know not to give their young ones over to sketchy humans. When I drive past the wild cows, they give me a side eye. It doesn't matter how many times they've seen it. They know what we're about.
Right.
So my question is, why are we demeaning animals who have an innate intuition and common sense to know you can get close with some of them sometimes, but don't get, they're about genocide and slavery. How come the humans, the higher consciousness supposed beings, can't figure out the same thing about what they're creating themselves and being a part of? It's fascinating to me.
Well, that seems as good a place as any to call the first free hour. To hear the next hour and a half of this fantastic conversation, just go to patreon.com/themeltpodcast, where for as little as $3 measly a month, you can hear full episodes.
All right, folks, I'm going to leave it there. I'll be back tomorrow, faithfully, hopefully, somewhere in the middle of the day, if not 3 to 5, somewhere in there. We'll get back to it. So thank you for the contributors and supporters. Blessings to all, even the haters and the miscreants, of course. And we'll be back at it. Say goodnight to the bad guy. I'm out of here. Paul Undebatable on the way out.
It's not about an uprising. You're not getting it. There's no uprising. I'm way quieter there than I am here. I'm not dealing with a bunch of incompetent, incapable infidels. They're just corrupt. And they know who to be corrupt with and who not. I'm passionate about the truth. I'm confident in my knowledge of self, if nothing else, and my ability to convey that. Full stop. Nothing before or after. I'm not interested in what legal and illegal is. I'm not a member of the legal society. I'm not even a member of the law society. There's 2 of them for a reason. I uphold the law. I'm not interested in legal policy and code. You don't know what you need to know about legal and lawful common law, and just by speaking, you get yourself wrapped up in their jurisdiction. The common law is still the foundational law of the land, and it's based on universal law, and it's codified in the contract you call the Constitution, and delineated into 2 jurisdictions: protected class and privileged class, private and public. That's all I need to know. I'm a very simple man. You swear in a Bible at court for a reason. That must mean the original law is within that Bible. So if you can interpret that original law properly and convey it properly with the proper countenance, You will be free from latches, vice, and bondage, as the word indicates. I'm not going to sit here undoing you from your worldly left brain, mind, and heart control because you don't understand the right brain intuitive concepts of life. You don't understand the metaphysical concepts of life. You don't understand the ideologies and philosophies that are the precepts of this system. I'll go back to the Tao before courts ever existed. A man's own thoughts unguarded are his own worst enemy until conquered. Then a man's own thoughts are his best friend, can help him more than even his own mother and father can. All you understand is worldly power, value, and systems. You don't understand the inherent hierarchical power and value systems that give way to everything that we see and experience here. You're lost, broken, confused, projecting onto me, and I'm having to be your daddy to explain how the universe and its laws work, and you're not even paying me, nor are you thanking me. You're hating on me while asking me to do it. It's bizarre. Yes, the words mean something, and the position means something, and the status means something, and you just don't get how it all comes together and how it works.
I do, though.
You don't. And that's where we're going to let it lie. You claim you do. I claim you don't. I'm laying out my understanding. You're not laying out yours beyond what they've told you. And we're going to let it lie there, and the people can make up their mind like they always do.
Do you want me to lay mine out? I will.
Sure, go ahead. I'm sure I've never heard it before.
No, I can see. That's why it doesn't, nobody's helped by, I know how being a defendant is, and I know that there's a difference between law on the books that the guys with guns hold you to, and philosophy. You are accountable to them, because if not, they'll just come with guns and get you.
So the fact that you don't understand what that means, yet that is the window into how this all works, is really not my problem. I can't understand it for you. And for you to sit here, go ahead, waste our time, energy, attention telling me how you think it works based on what you see, when we already know you're the type of person who looks and does not see. There's an etymological sound understanding that is spoken about. The origination is common lore, because all of law and philosophy is passed down orally, not the way you would want it to be, spoken, okay? And through that understanding, we get courts and codifications and legislations. So you might want to do another 5 years at least, another couple thousand hours of study on the origination of law and lore, how it all comes down through the matrix system that we experience on the lowest, most worldly, earthly level, and really put the pieces together about how this all came about. I'm telling you simply, I have a conviction in my heart. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want. Come get me and do your worst. What don't you get about that? What don't you get about that on the lowest level as a man? What don't you get about that on the lowest level as a man? I'm going to do and say whatever the fuck I want, and the devil can be damned to come and stop me.
This is my safe space.
What don't you get about it? What don't you get about it?
Why you're free.
Right, because you're a hater. You just admitted it subconsciously. Why is he free? Why isn't he in prison yet? You better go to God with that, or the devil. Stay the fuck away from me and stop projecting onto me, because it's not going to end well for you. Now you can take your leave, and I don't care if you ever come back here. Because I'm done with you. I've been done with you for the longest time. You can't stand that I'm done with you. And the fact that I'm done with you and that they haven't done me in yet eats at your ego, along with many other things I do that you can't do or won't do, because you're a fucking poor, broke, loser, low consciousness coward. So keep trying to do the equivocations with me and equalizations with me and power struggles and competitions. It goes nowhere for you. All you did was give me more fucking content. Thank you. There is no hate I have for you as a being in my heart. I don't like what you do, and I don't have to. You're a worldly infidel who lacks faith. You're bad faith, and you're dishonorable. Worse than that, you're fucking stupid.
You're an idiot. You're not listening to anything I'm saying.
God of all media.